So, reading sight words, reading exercises, very simple. It's like we start out by, you just read a little bit and make sure you can see it. And then you read a little bit and make sure you can see the story. You see it. Read a little bit. So you want to get to the point where, and they would never do this in school because not many kids could do this. So you're looking with your eyes, you're looking at the words on the page, but what you're really focusing on is this picture in your head. So you're doing two things at once. You're multitasking. This is what's going to keep the kids involved, right? We want to overload their brain. We want to overload the system so they don't get bored and go off to skateboarding while they're sitting there. So they're reading the words or hearing the words, and they're focusing on this story, this movie, this visual thing that's going on inside their heads. And in the beginning, we're just going to reinforce that by taking little bits. We read a little bit, make a picture. Read a little, make a picture. Read a little. Then we read a little bit more, make a picture. Read a little bit more, make a picture. After a while, it becomes you read a little bit and make sure that the picture's still there. And then you read a page. Am I still there? Yeah. And then read another page. Still there? Yeah. And that way, we read it once, we get what we want to get, and put the book down and never go back to it again. When we want to retain that information for a test, we want to have a recipe that's going to work like 99% of the time, 98% of the time. Okay? If it only works 80% of the time, that's like a C-. Okay? Assuming you even start off with all the right information. But let's say you only get 90% of the information that you need by reading, which may be 95% of the important information. If you only retain 90 or 80% of that, you're down to a C or B. We want A's. We want A's and B. A's and B plus is A's. So we want a recipe that's going to be 98% effective. How do we do that? Well, let's look at what we've started so far. We've started by taking information that was in letters, very distinct, or words, very separate, right? Little pieces of information that we had to, first of all, they're auditory and they're sequentially based, right? So we've moved from this, and we now translate it into pictures, images. So we've negated the necessity to process information sequentially or auditorily. So you see the two different thoughts here. Your child, here's the test results for any ADD kid. It looks like this. Strong. This is like the 100% percentile. This is a 0. So 90%, 30%. 80%, 30%. 95% or 75%, 35%. Whereas a normal child looks like this. It looks like our testing always looks like a mountain range. I can just look at the STAR testing of any kid and probably tell you whether he's ADD or not. If I knew nothing else, I just look at the test. You see this mountain range? They probably have a different learning style. Not necessarily ADD, but a different learning style. And as you get better at it, you'll see that the things that are based on natural intelligence, like vocabulary, will be high. But grammatical construction, the way it's taught in school, will be very low. Understanding, conceptualizing of numbers and quantities and whatnot will be high. Constructing equations and processing information mathematically will be low. And it'll go on like that. So you see this pattern after a while working with kids. So we want a recipe that's going to give us 98% memory. 98%. We get out of the words, we move it into pictures. Not only that, we take our pictures and we make them colorful, just like our words. We want to make our pictures colorful. So when we get to our spelling and vocabulary strategies, we're going to talk about making those pictures colorful, bright and colorful.
Do different colors have different effects?
Not, well, that's a little more sophisticated than we're going to get into. But the point is, when you visualize or see something that's in black and white, like a black and white photo file, okay? Notice the file size of a word, or not a word, but like a text document. It's like 1K. It's like 1 kilobit, 1,000 bits, right? If you turn that into a picture, a black and white, a basic bitmap image, it goes from 1,000 bytes to 10,000 bytes. If you turn that picture into a color image, now it goes to 50,000 bytes, right? Now think of these bytes as little neurons, neural connections. So this one has 1,000 connections in the brain. This one has 10,000 connections. The color picture in your brain touches on 50,000 little neurons. And every one of those neuron connections is a potential place to get fired up and recall that image. Does that make sense? So now we went from words to pictures to colorful. And what was the other thing we talked about? We talked about making the image funny. So we added emotion. Anybody remember going to Disneyland? Or Disney World? Anybody? Anybody? Remember the Pirates of the Caribbean or Space Mountain? Right? Or Legoland or something like that? Did you ever go to, right? Mm-hmm. Does anybody remember what you did the week before you went to Disneyland? No.
Packed.
Whatever. Right. So we remember for better or for worse, we remember the emotional times. That's how we know they're important. See, it has emotion attached to it, so our brain knows that this is something important. It's either something we want to go towards or something we want to go away from, but it's important. Now, I tend to stay away from, anger, sadness, guilt as like emotions to bring up on purpose. I don't think that'll be good for our schooling in the long run. So let's stay with fun, silly, happy. When you're older, you can go with sexy or something like that. Okay, but the point is, you add emotion to a memory. And now it goes from 50,000 to, about 1 million. Because it's connected with all the other events in your life that had that same emotion. It's really connected to a lot of things. Okay? So, the last thing we do, the last thing to make this recipe complete, well, if you tried to juggle once and then put it down, would that be something that would stay with you? If you juggled once, oh, I did it, boom, and then that's it. No. What if you juggled a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, and a little bit the next day? Ah. See, so we're wired up to be with. If something occurs more than once, if it occurs in time, it must be important. It must be something that we want to remember. So the last thing we do is we take those memories and we spread them out in time. Does that make sense?
What's the middle word? What are those?
Review.
Okay. Review. Okay.
So we learn something, and then we review it, and we review it again. And the nice thing is I tell kids, look, let's say it took you 1 minute to learn that word, or 2 minutes to read that passage and extrapolate the important information. Do you want to duplicate that again, that 2 minutes of your life? Do you want to waste it, lose it, or have to do it again and again just to try and pass a test? I wouldn't. I would say I want to value that time. That was part of my life. So what if we do something that's very quick, very easy, and it will really maximize this effort that we put into? And that is, we review the information. The nice thing is, we take a vocabulary word like success. Success, okay, what's success? Success, making money, getting girls. Yeah, that's success. Thinking like a teenage boy. Yeah, okay, money, girls, I like that. Cars. Okay, got it. There's my picture, 5 seconds. Okay, now, S-U-C-C-S-S. All right, S-U-C. Okay, success. Got the cars, the girls, the money. Okay, success. S-U-C-C-E-S-S, S-U-C-C-E-S-S, S-S-E-C-C-U-S. Good. All right, so there's my experience right in there. Took about 1 minute, give or take. 1 minute to learn that piece of information. Now, the biggest mistake most people make, 2 mistakes. One, they do not attach new information to something they already know. And it's as old as the hills. Every teacher has probably heard this and taught it and forgot it. Whenever you learn something new, you want to attach it to something you already know. Well, guess what? By making it into a picture, I just did that. I don't even have to think about it because I can't picture something that I don't know. Does that make sense? You can't make a picture of something that you don't have some knowledge of. So by taking the definition out of the words, boom, 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 making a picture out of it, I automatically connect it to something I already know. It's kind of a given. And I make it colorful, and I make it funny, or interesting. You know, well, money. I mean, success. That's interesting. And now that I have this important piece of information, I don't want to wait until I forget it to have to learn it again. I don't want to wait 3 days or a week and then go back and, okay, I know I learned this once, let me relearn it again. No, that's a waste of time. What I want to do is, while it's still fresh in memory, review it. So, whenever we learn something new, within 1 hour, we're going to do our first review. That's why with homework, in our homework strategy, I like to start off with spelling and vocabulary. So we do our spelling and vocabulary, we do our reading, we do our math, and then the last thing we do to complete our homework, we review those new words, 5, 7, 10 new words, and now we're done. We've got it locked in. Now, if we spent 1 minute to take the words, turn them into pictures, connect it with something we already know, make it colorful, make it emotional, and then review that memory, that new memory, within 1 hour, there's a really, really good chance I'm going to remember that the next day. So let's keep it. Let's keep the ball rolling. Within 1 day, I'm going to review it again.
Okay, so let's say it's a spelling test. We brought home the words. Monday we have the test. Maybe we have the test the next day sometimes for certain subjects. Maybe not spelling, but like history, or I don't know. What if we don't have the next day to re-review it? Or what? Is there a way to compress this, I guess?
Yes. Well, obviously, if you don't need to remember it for a week, then you don't need to remember it.
Okay.
So
then you just
if the test is the next day, learn it, review it within an hour. I would review it the next morning.
To keep it fresh. And
Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the cool thing. Okay, let's say your test is on like the meaning of 20 important vocabulary words. Okay? If you walk into the class with a sheet of paper that has nothing except the title of the chapter and the 15 or 20 vocabulary words written on it, is the teacher going to have a problem with that? I mean, if she really wants you to memorize spelling the word, she might. But you can easily put this away. But you could look at it right before the test.
Right.
You could go through, get your picture.
Right. Which means a lot of teachers let them. They give you like 5 minutes before class starts or whatever it is.
Yeah. So you can easily review it before the class. You can review it on the way to school. You can review it walking down the halls. Whatever. But if the test isn't till the end of the week or the next week.
Yeah. So this would be like a Monday, and the test is Friday.
The test is Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
So you do. Let's say you got those 20 or 30 spelling and vocabulary words. You do 7 of them on Monday. On Tuesday, you review the first 7, and you do 7 more. And then on Wednesday, you review the second 7, and you do 7 more. And on Thursday, you do the fourth 7, and you review all of the other ones, ideally. And on Friday morning, you review them again, all of them. You just review them all, like before the test. So within an hour, within a day, and within 1 week. And that is like a bulletproof recipe with this. From the words to the pictures, colorful, emotional, and in time, and spread out in time. So even if you got a guy who's going to rush through and kind of you don't want to read the whole thing. So I'm looking at a worst case scenario, right? Guy is really in a hurry. He's done studying. It's really not his thing. So he's going to pick up his science book. We're going to write down. We're going to make our little cheat sheet. Take an 8.5 by 11 paper. Draw 2 lines. Make a T. Put the title of the chapter so we know what we're dealing with. And then we're going to write down our keywords. Keywords. I always skip a couple of lines because sometimes you want to put in a little bit of information, a bullet point, but that's it. It's keyword with 2 bullet points. So you might have 15, 20 words on that page by the time you get done.
Okay, so is the act of writing it down part of the process of them remembering it? Or
Yes.
Okay, see, there's where our issue would be at my house. The act of writing anything is like pure physical torture.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, would it work the same if he was to say it out loud and I wrote it down for him or anything? I mean, does it have the same benefits?
The writing it down isn't really a big deal.
Okay.
For most people. Is
he
he planning on going to college?
Who knows? I couldn't tell you. Depends on his day. If we're having a good day, yeah.
But don't you think once he sees it, if you did it the first time and then he studies it, he says,
Right,
hey, this is
possibly.
easy, and maybe the next time
Possibly. But
I mean, this is not writing out big long definitions and paragraphs and all
writing
that.
His name is a challenge many days. It's like, oh my God, really? He hates the act of writing. I just can't even explain how.
No, you don't have to explain it. I get it.
Yeah. But he's better with the typing.
And I don't know if he'd be interested in changing, because here's what writing is. Writing for him it's really not writing the way we think about it. What he's doing is he's drawing each letter.
Yes. Yeah.
And each letter takes like an incredible amount of thought.
It does, exactly. It's a huge ordeal.
Now, if he's interested in, it takes a little practice and a little training, but
Right. Just have practice writing without looking at it?
Well, that's not the first step, but that's actually part of it. And I even teach this kids pretty young now, like down in the grades, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I'll teach them how to do this so that like when the teacher gives them instructions or says copy this off the board, they don't have to go like this.
Right, the up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah.
N, E, U.
And then they lose track and they look up at a different spot and rewrite or skip letters.
Yeah. So you just write, and it's not going to be neat. but they can get the message down, and then if they do give a little attention, it can be a lot neater. The point is, now I'm just writing from memory.
Right.
It's a mechanical action,
Right.
not.
Yeah. That's the other thing. He's got to push as hard as possible.
Well, yeah.
And I forever just if you relax, it's not as exhausting. But no, we can't
And
do
then they
that.
develop little.
Yeah, calluses.
Yeah.
I had one guy.
I've got that.
I want to say Brett, not Brett. What was his name? He could snap a pencil.
Oh yeah.
I
Like,
do when I was
like
younger.
I mean, literally snap the pencil by holding it so tight.
Yes. That's what
And
my son
even
does.
his, like a wood pencil like this, it would after he used it for a while, it would have an
It's an
indentation.
indentation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you
Amazing.
imagine? And I know I was tired when I was little. I hated writing. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I still don't like writing. My writing's horrible.
Well, now
but
I'm even worse because I'm so used to the computer. I've actually gotten way worse because
So
everything's-
there are a couple of different strategies that we work with. First make a picture. All right. You make it. You see it. You make your sentence, and then just write what it is you saw. Write your picture. But you got to get it from the painstaking process of drawing each letter to. So just like with reading, you need a map of those letters. For writing, you need the same thing. You got to have a map in your head. So you don't think about D. You just
Right.
D, E,
Right.
A, R.
But he sits and thinks every single letter out. It's
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hate it too. I did
Yeah.
hate it.
yeah.
I was like, how many kids get a D in penmanship in the first grade?
Right.
Okay? Right here?
I'm right there with you.
It's like, how do you do it? You're supposed to be learning they're just teaching you a letter. How can you get a D in penmanship? All you have to do is write the letter. You don't have to be smart, but I couldn't I think maybe once I managed a C.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got this way of taking words and concepts, we turn them into pictures, boom, 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 there we go. We now have left and right brain. We've got a keyword, a trigger word with a picture, an image of the information. So what we can do, the way we can harness this, is when we're either listening to a lecture or reading something, we pull out those key words. That's all we want. We just want a dozen key words. Most chapters, most sections are going to have 8 or 10 key words. If you read maybe three chapters in a history book or something, you'll wind up with maybe about 24 to 30 key words or concepts. And each one of those took you about a minute to learn, and each one of these takes about 10 seconds. You just have to hold that picture for 5 to 7 seconds, so figure 10 seconds a piece, which means your total investment in a test that's going to have like 30 or 40 critical pieces of information, your total investment is about 45 minutes.
The whole week? Is that the whole week?
That's spread out through the whole week.
Okay.
And part of these, look at this. I can carry this around so that I can review this in the car on the way to school. I can review it between classes. So,
Right.
whereas if I'm doing it this way, I gotta have my book, I gotta have my notebook, I need to have some time to sit and get prepared to be in this, this study state of mind and all this. Heck, for this, all I have to do is look at my sheet for, 10 seconds times 8 words. A minute and a half. So as they get to know that this works and they can
Right.
trust it,
The
most
more
guys are going to go with it. Look,
Right.
you want to graduate, right? You want to be in this, you want to be junior for the next 3 years? Probably not. Okay, so we pull out the key words, we review them, hour, day, and a week, and then when we go to our test taking, we're gonna go over this later on. But just to begin, we're gonna read the question and make a picture of it. So we just ask ourselves, okay, what is it? What are they asking me? What is this question about? And you make a picture of it. Guess what? in most cases, the answer will be a picture inside the picture of the question. And that's how some of these guys are really happy now, because they take their tests in half the time as anyone in their class. Anyone. My son has taken 30-minute tests in like 3.5 minutes. He's finished the entire test in 3.5 minutes, just because it's so fast.
Right.
I mean,
it's just there.
It's just there. It's like a 20th of a second to know what the answer is. Once you see that key word.
So adults can do this too, like for taking real estate tests. And
Absolutely,
like
absolutely. Last year my oldest student was 63, getting ready to retire as an agricultural inspector, and if he could pass the test, which he'd already failed 3 times, but if he could manage to pass the test for deputy commissioner, he was going to retire with another $400 or $500 a month. Okay, so you retire at your salary, right? Mm-hmm. So if he could pass this test, he was going to get $5,000 a year for the rest of his life. You think he wasn't motivated?
Oh, yeah.
There was no lack of motivation that kept him from passing this test. Okay, believe me. That's why I took him on as a client. I said, okay, this guy's motivated. He's got $5,000 a year for the rest of your life. And I could see it on his, like, yeah. Okay, there's motivation.
Yep.
But he couldn't retain it the way he had been taught to learn. In fact, it was actually, I learned something from him, because every time he took the test, he did worse. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. Well, show me how do you study? What are you studying from? You know what he was doing? He was studying from a multiple choice exam, a sample exam.
Right.
So every time he read the question, what did he also read?
The wrong answers.
All the wrong answers. Yeah. So when he goes into his puzzle solving brain, he's like seeing not just what should be the right answer, but all the wrong answers along with it, and it's all jumbled up. So his scores kept going down.
So say with a multiple choice, you think, after so many times of taking it, you'd have to get it right, because,
You would think so. But it was actually working against him. The more he studied, the worse he got. So we got rid of that, and I said chop it, we cut up the test, and so he had the question on one side of a card, and he had on the back just the answer. That was it, the key word, the answer. Boom, 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 boom. And he would go look at one and then see the other one. Or he'd go the other way. We would do the key word and figure out the question, the definition. Go back and forth. And boom, last time, passed it, flying colors, all happy. In fact, he even brought his daughter in. She was a sophomore. Very bright, amazing in math, just a natural in mathematics, really high advanced mathematics. But she couldn't memorize. Real struggle for her. Hours and hours of study. So I think I took her study time from about 10 to 12 hours a week, because she was a good student. She was committed.
Right.
So she'd be putting in 10 to 12 hours a week. And she was also a soccer player. We got her study time down to about 2-3 hours a week. So she actually had time to play soccer and have a life. So that was very cool. So, everybody get the whole visual notes, study notes? It's awesome. It's awesome. And fortunately, from 3rd grade to 12th grade, almost every book has the key words highlighted. You don't even have to think. It's a no-brainer. So, very cool. And minimal writing. Even if you do write the words yourself, you're not writing out long definitions, Cornell notes, or any other nonsense. And now we're back to Now we're up to handwriting. Okay. So we already started talking about this. That if you're drawing your letters, if you're using a process that's equivalent or appropriate to drawing a house or a flower, very unique. Each line means something. Blah blah blah. that's going to be just a mind-numbingly painful way to write anything, even your name. But if you can take that, change the process to something that is automatic. It's just, I know what a D is. I don't have to look at that. I know what a D is, and an E, and an L, and a P. Boom, it's just automatic. Now you just, boom, you're in a whole different world. So there's some exercises that we use here. Very, very simple. We may or may not start out with making the letters out of clay if the kids are young enough. But what we usually do is we take an example of the lettering, be it block or cursive, and we do this very cool little exercise. And you do this a couple of times and it's done. It's actually handled very quickly. A highlighter, not a pen or pencil. Because here's what will happen. And think about this in terms of being a visual learner. B. And now you start tracing over it. What is that? What the heck is that anymore? You see? What I've done is created this cacophony of lines in my brain. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to make matters worse. Let's make it better. So we take something that is a good example of the writing, and with a highlighter, we trace over the letter, and very lightly, nice and relaxed. Mm-hmm. And we're going to trace over the letter and say the letter A. Do 3, maybe 4 times, depending upon the patience and tolerance of the child. So I'm going to trace the letter, and I'm just actually going to do it backwards for you. So it'll go A. Actually, I'm looking at it, and I'm A. Next, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to trace it 3 times with my eyes closed. So I have to have a picture of it in my head, right? A. I'm visualizing it. A. You get it? Totally different process. Now I'm writing the letter from a picture in my head. Okay? I go B, 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 B. Go through the alphabet like that a couple of times over a period of a week or 2 or 3. It's done. It's handled. In almost every case, it'll be handled. Writing will be completely different for the rest of his life. Make sense? Any questions?
How do they stay in line when they do the thing where they're not looking at all and they're looking at the board and they're just writing it?
They don't.
At all.
No, that's a totally different thing.
You take an 8. You write on top of your other ones that are already there.
No. You just take an 8.5 by 11. You just take a sheet of paper, or you open up to a sheet of paper, and you just start writing. Oops. It's not for looks. It's not for anybody except you just get it, right. Stick it in your homework folder or whatever it's got to be. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. That's all you're doing. It's not for neatness. It's not for anything else. Yeah. So you wouldn't want to try to write lines. Although that is another exercise that I do. I put something up on the board. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and I have them. It's just a fun game, and I have them write and practice writing without looking at their paper. All right, and now we're up to our visual spelling exercise. Sounds complicated. It's 10 steps, but basically this is what we're doing. We're going to take the words, we're going to turn them into a picture. We're going to take the information and make it something that visually, it's in a visual format. It's connected to something we know. We're going to make it colorful. We're going to add emotion, and then we're going to review it within an hour, day, and week. So what I sometimes do is print out cards that have the words on them like this, but you can just take any 8.5 by 11, you fold it in half long ways. You can put one word on the front, another word on the back. I like the heavier stock paper, like 65-pound bond or something like that. Once they get up into high school, they probably won't want to go through all this. I still prefer when they're here that we practice some words, and I like to throw out some, after they get a little bit of practice, I like to throw out some good words like, efflorescence, platycephalus, illumination, just, some kind of $5 words for them to see that they can do it. And even like kids that are like fairly young, 6, 7 years old, I'll take a word like efflorescence and I'll write it out like this. I'll write E-F-F. L-O-R E-S-C E-N-C-E. And even a child who's struggling, as long as they've got their alphabet down, they can take 3 letters, close their eyes, and see those 3 letters. So EFF, I see it in red. There's my EFF. And then in blue, LOR. And then I go through ESC, green, ESC. Okay, ESC. And then in orange, NCE.
So the picture they're making isn't like an overall picture, it's the letters in those colors is the picture they're making in their head, not an actual physical picture of something.
Yes, yes. So, sorry, maybe I rushed over that one. So the first thing, before they even look at the word, ideally, before you even really look at the word seriously, you start with the definition.
Okay.
So efflorescence means unfolding. It's like blossoming, blooming, the flower unfolding. So we'll do like, okay, imagine a flower unfolding and then, dirt bikes flying out of it, okay? Something interesting to that. A flower with a colorful flower with dirt bikes flying all over the place as the flower opens up. Okay, so that's efflorescence. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Or fairies or
whatever appeals to
unicorns,
that person,
whatever, yeah. So, and then we'll take, in this case, we'll take each one of these, and I'm going to take the red. I'm going to take EFF. I'm going to look at EFF, and then add that to my picture. So I'm going to start with a relatively simple picture, and I'm going to add pieces to it. I'm going to add the red, and then I'm going to add the blue, and then I'm going to add the green. But all the while, it's still the flower unfolding with the unicorns coming out, and I see underneath it, I see the red, EFF, LOR, ESC, and then ENCE. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how quickly they can get that. And they'll spell it forwards and backwards. I'm not hung up on spelling it perfectly backwards, but the idea of looking at it backwards, forwards and backwards, is what helps them kind of cement it in as a picture rather than little pieces. A lot of kids will try to rush through it. You'll probably notice their eyes are looking down. They're using an auditory or auditory digital strategy to memorize the word. They'll try to do it really quickly, and then they can spell it forwards but not backwards. So we really want to emphasize looking up to the left, looking up. Hold the card right here, and with their eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter if they really want to leave them open. and you can't get them to keep their eyes closed, just, you know, okay. Efflorenscence. And then spell it backwards. We're gonna break it 4, right? Is that what was I saying?
It's at 4:30.
4:30? Okay.